compound ignorance. Compound ignorance is one of the worst kinds of ignorance you can have. It's like a sin that you don't know is a sin. When you have compound ignorance, you think you know something. You think you know the proper way. You think that you're right. Therefore, you're not even looking for what is right, for what is correct. You are constantly going astray, and sometimes you're actually going further astray. Alhamdulillah that Allah, in His infinite mercy, guided me back to the right path. Now, I'm going to classify ignorance into 4 levels so that everyone can kind of see that there was a process. And I went through this process. I went from these different levels. I'll start with the worst one. A person is raised to believe that the weaknesses of himself are actually meritorious. And he goes about boasting even in pride about the sins which he is committing. I actually did this. I was actually at this level. I was actually deprived, because I would go out on the weekends with my friends in California and in Texas, in Illinois and New Jersey, and we moved around a lot because I was in a military family, so I probably had a chance to ruin a great many lives. May Allah forgive me for that. We took going out and having these parties. Omar might have mentioned some of this kind of stuff. And the games that we used to play and the tricks we used to do, even simple stuff like going and stealing something from the store, whether it be a pack of bubble gum when you're little, gasoline as you get older and gasoline prices rise. You don't have a job, you're in high school, what to do? And then you go out and you brag about what you've done. Basically, you promote it, that you should go out and do this. Look what I did. I got away with it. I still have my money in my pocket. I didn't get away with it, ladies and gentlemen, and you will never get away with it. And that's what I came to understand when I accepted Islam, is that Allah saw me. Allah recorded those deeds. And inshallah, Allah has forgiven me, but until the Day of Judgment, I will never actually know whether I will have to stand and atone for those things. So anyone thinking of committing foul deeds should take heed that Allah is watching, and you will not get away with it. The next stage of ignorance, which I went through, is similar to the first stage. Now I'm sort of getting tired of it. I'm wanting to change my life. It's getting old, it's getting boring. So I'm realizing that these things are bad. And I'm no longer boasting of it. It's no longer fun. At first it was a game. It was entertaining. Now, different prejudices. And those things made us feel anger. I didn't go to high school thinking I'm going to go to college and be an engineer, or I'm going to go to college and be a doctor. So from the time I was little, because I watched too much television. Television is another great waster of time. Some people call it the idiot box. And an idiot box is what it is. And, now that I've come into Islam, I actually call it shaitan. I seek refuge from being addicted to television, which I still am. It is an addiction which I fight to this day. So because of this want to change my life, to get away from my environment, I went from the point of being base and boasting about it and bragging and running with my friends to now trying to separate myself slightly. As you get older also, the chances of getting into trouble for this change. When you're little, you get a little spanking. Go to your room, no dinner. As you get older, bad things. So we'll get now to the third of the 4 stages. And excuse me if I move over from the mic. Now this is when you know everything that you're doing is wrong, and you have the ability to stop, but you just don't. This is even with peer pressure. So now my friends begin to understand that I'm no longer with them. What's wrong with ESA? Why doesn't he want to go to the club tonight? What's wrong with ESA? Why doesn't he want to do this? I asked ESA to ride with me in the car so I could go do this, and ESA said he didn't want to do it. He didn't want any part of it. You know, I'm worried something's happening to ESA. He used to be crazy. He used to be wild. He used to be out of his head, sick, ignorant. And now he's changing. And this is actually a word that we use in America. Like, you know, it's actually even a compliment. Like, you know how some Americans say, "What's up, dog?" Referring to their friend. Dog is man's best friend. We actually use the term ignorant. "Oh, man, that fool's ignorant, man. Did you see that movie? Oh, man, he's ignorant, man." You know, that was actually a term which we used. It was praiseworthy to be ignorant, praiseworthy to be stupid, to be the class clown in school, to disrupt, to be the one who every day is sent out. Go to the principal's office. You have detention. You're suspended. You're expelled. These were actually praiseworthy things where I grew up. So, alhamdulillah, through a gradual process of maturing, I rose to the last of these categories, which is I was still ignorant of the divine guidance, but I was able to distinguish right from wrong. I knew that there was a true religion. I knew that there was a God. And now I had built up the esteem. I had built up the discipline to actually fight my lower self, to fight my desires, to fight the peer pressure, the waswas, which is the whispering of shaitan or jinn. I built myself up now as a man to where you couldn't say, "Oh, you're weak, you're this, you're that." And I would say, okay, just to prove that I wasn't weak, that I wasn't afraid, that I wasn't effeminate. Now you can say whatever you want to say. I'm me. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do it when I want to do it and how I want to do it. And that's what I consider manhood. That's when I consider you actually reach manhood. When you leave that peer pressure, when you leave that and you finally get to you become yourself. You become firm in yourself. You begin to recognize truth, responsibility, and you begin to deal with them. That's part of manhood, is having the discipline to deal with your responsibilities. So how are these illnesses cured? Well, through jihad al-nafs. But Isa, you at that point, you weren't a Muslim yet. How did you do jihad al-nafs? This is an Islamic thing, fighting the lower self. Jihad al-nafs basically can be simplified into knowledge that leads to the truth. I began to study. Like I said, I was growing up. I began my life expectancy, my life desires, what I needed to achieve began to change. And as what I needed to achieve began to change, so too did what I needed to do in order to reach my goals. So I began to study. And studying, if you know somebody who's in this stage of ignorance and you really can't talk to them about Allah right now, start talking to him about mathematics, science, chemistry. Start his mind working on formulas, 1 + 1 = 1 or 2. I was going to say 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. But I think most of the people here know that that doesn't work. 1 + 1 + 1 does not equal 1. It equals 3. A third, and a third is 1. So begin like this and then build these formulas in a person's mind to where he comes out of this ignorance. The other thing for jihad al-nafs is just through this process of education, you begin to think differently. And so by thinking differently, you're able to move yourself away from those base desires, like I said. So you talk to the guy or the young woman, old woman if it happens to be an old woman. You're never too old to accept Islam. You talk to the person about what's going to happen to you in the next life. What are the consequences of the actions which you're doing? not just in the terms of this life, but in the terms of the next life. And you start to remember these things. This process will, inshallah, discipline the self. When you begin to think of death, at first when I used to think of death, it motivated me in a bad way, because I didn't think of just dying on my bed, the father of a happy family, my children being Hafiz Quran. I thought of being shot in a nightclub or in the street in a car or something like that. I thought of being in jail, in prison, locked up for who knows how many years, maybe even dying of some illness acquired, maybe at some point I don't even remember because I was drunk on alcohol. Now, that's compound ignorance that I started with. When you think you know and you don't know. That's a hard one to cure. It takes time, but if you're patient, you can do it. And I did it. I'm a living example. I'm a living proof that you can do it. Simple ignorance is easy. And as Muslims, we're commanded to go to people suffering from this with dawah. Because all we're talking about is giving people who have the ability to think, who have the ability to reason, who have the ability to do right, going to these people and giving them the true information, giving them Islam, delivering the message. If you're successful, and I hope that you all are successful, then maybe Allah will open the heart of this person to Tawbah, which is the next thing I'd like to talk about. When you're ignorant and you begin to come out of your ignorance, it's not just enough to say, okay, I'm finished with that, I'm not going to. No. You have to make Tawbah from what you did. You have to, because it's necessary in order to bring down the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on you. How could you bring down the blessings of Allah upon you for all of these sins, when you've committed all of these sins, especially when you're not even recognizing who Allah is? You're not giving Him His right. That's like you come to someone who you owe money. You owe me $500, and you bring me a $100 bottle of cologne as a gift. No, give me back my money. I'll go buy my own cologne. I don't need that from you. So this is what we're dealing with, that the person must repent. He must go back to Allah. He must recognize who his Creator is and what his Creator demands from him, what his Creator wants from him. And inshallah, when he begins to worship in the correct manner, the blessings will come down upon him.